It's 5 o'clock. This check of the time brought to you by Big O Tires, the team you trust.
Hey there, I'm Catalina Villegas, and this is your Spectrum News 1 update. More than half of all Californians, or about 20 million people, have received at least one dose of the coronavirus vaccine. That's according to the LA Times. The state ranks 12th in the nation in the number of residents vaccinated. Nearly 38% of all residents are now fully vaccinated. And the University of California has agreed to no longer consider SAT and ACT scores in admissions. The campus system made the announcement yesterday after settling a lawsuit. Minority and low-income students argue they were put at a disadvantage for not being able to afford test prep services. And activists in South LA are trying to co-name Crenshaw Boulevard after civil rights icon Malcolm X. Organizers held a festival today in Leimert Park to gather support. Activists say adding Malcolm X's name to Crenshaw will pay homage to the civil rights advocate. That's your update. Ahead on your weekend.
You know the wind will take the fire everywhere, and we can have the whole city on fire because of the homeless.
The number of fires that start in homeless encampments have tripled over the last few years. Business owners tell us what it's like to live under that constant threat, and we'll tell you what the city is doing about it. And then, is it time for the masks to come off? We'll take a look at the CDC's new guidelines and speak to an expert as to whether California can ignore them. And then, standing up against hate from the AAPI community here in Los Angeles to conflict on the West Bank. Communities all over the world are calling for peace. Welcome to your weekend on Spectrum News 1. I'm Catalina Villegas. Saturday evenings are for getting to the heart of the issues that affect you the most. Leading tonight's show, fires at homeless encampments. An average of 24 fires a day start in LA City homeless encampments. That's according to the fire department. They make up more than half of the fires the city responds to. District Judge David Carter, who recently ordered the city to clean up Skid Row by fall, cited in his decision the, quote, distressing frequency of the homeless fires that are, quote, threatening both the unhoused and housed populations. To get a sense of how this is playing out on the ground, this week I went to speak with a business owner who lives day in and day out with this threat. Since the age of 20, Reza Karimi had a vision for his future.
Let me see the red tray.
So he started his Good Seed company at a swap meet in 1983. He moved his business to Venice Boardwalk shortly thereafter, and over the next 4 decades grew it to the store you see today.
We have 11 employees, and we're open 7 days a week, and we have a very good inventory, and we have great brands, best in the world, I say.
This eyewear company is his life's work.
I worked 17 years without a day. It's been a beautiful journey. I love this country.
But the homeless encampment right across from his store is now a real danger. He has dealt with defecation, fighting, drug use, vandalism, shoplifting, and harassment. But in January, his life's work was feet away from going up in flames when the vacant building next to him caught on fire. The cause, a homeless encampment.
It could have burned everybody that lived next door to him. Venice, the homes and the businesses are very close to each other. Once some burn, and if it's any wind, you know the wind will take the fire everywhere, and we can have the whole city on fire because of the homeless.
About 24 fires a day start in homeless encampments. According to LA City firefighters, it accounts for more than half of the fires they respond to. This one happened earlier this month, also along the Venice Boardwalk.
They have butane tanks, they cook here, they have their tents next to the barbecues, or they set each other's tent on fire.
Some are cooking fires, about a third are arson. Sometimes homeless people are the victims, sometimes the arsonists. But they are growing. Since the fire department began keeping track, they've tripled in number.
It's just a big, big, big problem, and the city has to take care of this.
In response, Councilmember Mike Bonin is working on a program with firefighters that would appoint a fire unit to the beach for a few hours, a few days a week. Reza hopes it will be enough, because when I ask what would have happened if his business had been lost, he says,
Well, this place is my life. It's provided a good life for my family and provided our future.
A future he can't bear to see go up in flames.
We are witnessing the most intense confrontation between Palestinians and Israeli military forces in years. President Joe Biden spoke with both Israel's prime minister as well as the Palestinian president about the escalating conflict, voicing his strong support for Israel's strikes into Gaza while raising concerns about people being hurt and killed. The Palestinian Health Ministry in Gaza says Israeli airstrikes have killed at least 145 people, including more than 40 children. Israel has reported at least 10 dead, including 2 children. And today, an Israeli airstrike destroyed a 12-story building in Gaza that housed the offices of the Associated Press, Al Jazeera, and other media. Those who were staying in the building received an evacuation warning about an hour before the strike. For its part, Israeli forces said that the location was also housing Hamas military intelligence. Here in the U.S., people on both sides of the issue are calling for peace in the West Bank. From what's happening on the other side of the globe to racial hate here in the U.S., our Aziza Schuler spoke with multiple groups who are all asking for the same thing: peace. Aziza?
As Martin Luther King Jr. once said, injustice anywhere is a threat against justice everywhere. I'm Aziza Schuler, and people across SoCal are uniting in a fight against hate. When they met as film students at UCLA, they probably didn't think they'd be where they are today. Jamil and Reem are 2 friends from different marginalized backgrounds, but share common struggles.
Black people and Palestinians have stood together since the 1960s because we've been fighting for the same thing, which is to be free.
And Jamil says even if it wasn't for her friendship with Reem, she'd still be here rallying in solidarity with Palestinians.
I do believe that even if you don't know somebody personally, it is your duty as a human being to stand when you see something is wrong. So as you can see around the world, there is this movement for solidarity between brown people and black people and, Asians and just people of color. We're all in solidarity around the world.
And this mural of George Floyd's face painted on a wall in Gaza is proof. Now, with the growing violence between Israel and Gaza, LA's Black Lives Matter chapter is returning the support for Palestinians alongside hundreds of people of different races and religions. Meanwhile, about 40 miles south in Buena Park, the Asian American Pacific Islander community is setting up for a Unity Against Hate rally, a national movement supported by the NAACP combating the increased hate attacks against Asians. Reverend Yvonne Boyd came from Monrovia to speak alongside local Asian American leaders.
Today is a call to action. And a reminder that we cannot sit idle when injustice happens anywhere.
She believes sometimes it takes the most unfortunate events to hold a mirror up to humanity.
The common experience that's shared between marginalized community is a desire for respect, a desire for access,
and a desire for coexistence in a world where everyone's struggles may be different, but no one is alone in the fight.
Hi, everybody. A very happy Saturday to you. I'm meteorologist Ferdinand Fuhrer. So we've got some wind advisories in place. The National Weather Service has issued them mainly for our deserts, high deserts, low deserts, Coachella Valley, and then for our mountains. Some of them end this evening. Some of them go all the way till Sunday. 20 to 30 mile per hour sustained wind gusts to about 40 to 50 miles per hour. Those winds coming out of the west southwest. So if you're up in any of those areas, you're kind of used to it. But again, some gusty conditions out there, all ahead of this area of low pressure, which is enhancing the marine layer, driving those winds, and actually will bring a chance of rain as we go through tomorrow as well. We'll talk about that coming up in just a bit. For this evening, though, downtown LA, 6 o'clock, partly cloudy skies, temperatures in the 60s. By the time we get to 9 o'clock, we're in the low 60s. The marine layer will be back in as well. And then by midnight, if you're out and about, temperatures still in the 60s. Overnight lows will generally be in the 50s overnight tonight. We got the clouds in place. That's basically just going to act like a blanket and keep all the heat down. So temperatures not too cool, mainly 50s coming up in just a bit. We're going to talk about some of those rain showers.
As California continues to reopen, it feels like things are finally getting back to normal, especially since the CDC scaled back their guidelines this week in regards to masking and social distancing for people who are fully vaccinated. But for many, this sudden shift is bringing up a lot of new questions. Here to help us break some of those down is Rob Fuller. He's a partner with Nelson Hardiman Healthcare Lawyers. You are an expert on anything healthcare and law related, so thank you so much for joining us, helping us break all of these things down.
Good afternoon.
The big question now is what happens to all these mask mandates from individual stores and retail chains to cities and states. All the existing mask mandates seem to be based on CDC guidelines. Many states have responded to these new guidelines by lifting their mask mandates, but California has decided to not do that. So why is California keeping these restrictions, and can they do that?
Well, right now we have basically an honor system on CDC guidance. You have the scientifically based finding, which is terrific, that if you're fully vaccinated, your risks are so low that the mask wearing and the social distancing doesn't add much to your own safety. The issue with California is that I believe it's still only about 35 or 40% of the population is vaccinated. So the messaging from the California is that, well, most people still need to wear a mask and need to socially distance because they're not fully vaccinated. We don't have vaccine passports, and no one is checking your medical record to go into a Ralph's supermarket or anything. But, people being what they are, if they're really not inclined to wear a mask, and they're just going to say they're fully vaccinated and walk around. So I think California is taking a bit of a more conservative approach until the total vaccination numbers increase to a little larger level.
What about retail businesses? Trader Joe's announced yesterday that customers can shop in their stores maskless, but what about California locations? On the flip side of that, what about stores that want to keep their mask mandates in place? Can they do so even if the state lifts the CDC, accepts the CDC guidelines?
Yes, private businesses are free to, admit or not admit people. No shirt, no service is a common sign in most restaurants. So you do have the ability of private businesses to establish their own requirements for entry to their place of business. Businesses are all, required under OSHA regulations to make sure that they offer their employees a safe workplace. And if the business owner doesn't feel that it's quite safe enough yet to admit people without masks, because so many are still unvaccinated, especially in California, it's within their prerogative to do so. They certainly can require masks for entry.
Interesting. Now, when it comes to individuals, specifically kids under 12 or professionals who may be immunocompromised or uncomfortable with going back to normal, can these folks be required to return to the classroom or the office, even if they've been working safely and efficiently from home?
Well, that's a large population there. I believe that in the case of the children, again, the primary group that needs to be protected are the teachers. And if the prevalence of the virus is such that they think that the teachers are fairly protected without masking, then the children could be required to come back to school. Children are treated differently in that case. For people who are working efficiently at home, that's a matter between them and their employer. That they may not want to go back to the office. They may not feel as safe going into an office building as they are in their own house. And most employers, I think, are taking note of that, and on certain positions where you can contribute and get your job done from home, that is an accommodation that is made. It's not covered by law, though. It's strictly the business owner's choice. It's not a disability under the Americans with Disabilities Act or a civil right to have your place of work be one place or another. But hopefully, in most cases, common sense will prevail, and people who are immunocompromised, who don't feel safe yet because the virus is still out there a lot, and because 40, 50, 60% of the people are still unvaccinated, it seems reasonable to allow those people to continue to work at home, at least for the next few months, while the vaccination levels come up and the virus levels hopefully go down.
Yeah, like you said, hopefully common sense will prevail on this.
And it's been a tough one during this pandemic.
Absolutely. That's Robert Fuller with Nelson Hardiman Healthcare Lawyers. Thank you so much for helping us digest all of this new information.
Anytime. Thank you very much.
Still ahead, celebrating like champions. It's been a long time coming for Lakers fans as the team finally unveiled banner number 17, what it means for fans and former players alike. And later,
I'm Timothy Parker in the studio where an up-and-coming artist is taking on a Bob Marley classic, all for the cause of social justice. You'll meet her coming up.
Never listen to us when we speak.
We are connected, engaged, from the moment we rise. We move. We adjust. We learn, explore, relax, and grow together so we're ready to build a better tomorrow. Stay informed throughout your day with the Spectrum News app, exclusively for Spectrum customers.
Since becoming a pilot, my favorite place to fly is Southern California because Los Angeles is gigantic, it's huge, but when I start to fly, the higher I get, the smaller the area gets. There are small communities within that large area. And when you have a channel like Spectrum News 1 who cares about these communities, that's special, that's different, and that's something I'm proud to be a part of. I'm Chris Leary, anchor, Spectrum News 1.
For more than a century, the LA Times has been keeping you in the know. Now, Spectrum News 1 brings their paper to your screen. Introducing LA Times Today, giving some of the best reporters in the world a new platform to share their stories and issues that matter to Southern Californians. LA Times Today with Lisa McCree, weeknights at 7 p.m., exclusively on Spectrum.
Your evening on Spectrum News 1 is the way news should be. I grew up in California, so a lot of my weather expertise is about California. Your evening news is unique. It's going to be different than what you see elsewhere. We cover stories that impact you and your community. We all have different personalities and different experiences with where we've been in journalism, and so bringing that all together is really fun. Let us be a part of your evening every weeknight on Spectrum News 1.
Introducing the new Spectrum News app, stories that matter to you, now wherever you are. Download the all-new Spectrum News app, your community connection.
We always knew Kobe would eventually be a Hall of Famer, but now it's official. The late, great Kobe Bryant has been inducted into the Basketball Hall of Fame. Kobe's wife, Vanessa, accepted the honor alongside Michael Jordan. Take a listen.
If my husband were here tonight, he would have a long list of people to thank that helped inspire him and equip him to be in the Hall of Fame. Family, friends, mentors, the Lakers, teammates, muses, and opponents. This is one of the many hard parts about not having him here. At the risk of leaving anyone out, I can only say thank you.
More on Kobe's enshrinement in just a bit, but just about 7 months ago, this was the scene in Orlando as the Lakers won their 17th NBA title in franchise history, beating the Miami Heat in 6 games. Fast forward to this week, a very special moment for the Lakers and their fans as the team unveiled its 2020 NBA championship banner in the rafters at the Staples Center, a ceremony they refused to commemorate until fans could be in the building. Nikki K talked with a former Laker great who knows what it means to get the job done.
7-time NBA champion Robert Horry is used to celebrating big accomplishments on big stages. But instead of raising a banner in 2021, he's raising his diploma.
I went back to Tuscaloosa, Alabama to attend my graduation at the University of Alabama. So I'm a graduate now.
The hands of Big Shot Rob have delivered some of the most clutch buckets in Laker lore. But over the past year, those hands of Robert Horry have been performing under a different type of deadline.
So I can peck a little bit fast. I'm not one of these dudes. I'm like, I was writing the paper and I was into the moment. Don't bother me right now. So
Rob used COVID to go back to online school, which meant homework and papers for the first time in decades. It was just this last year when he was spending time at home with his family that Rob felt inspired by his son.
Excuse me, I'll start with my 15-year-old. My 15-year-old who's playing basketball at Harvard Westlake, and I was sitting here and I'm saying, man, if he goes to college, I would like to follow him, make sure his path is good, make sure he stays on the right path. And I'm like, I can't do that unless I have a college degree. Going back to Alabama was so much fun, and to walk in that Coliseum, it makes me feel, it gives me a sense of pride.
With the 11th pick in the 1992 NBA draft,
Rob entered the NBA draft in 1992. He left the University of Alabama with only 6 classes left to graduate. He went on to win a lot in the NBA, a decorated career that included 3 rings with the Los Angeles Lakers. But 30 years later, Rob would seek a merit that he could never accomplish as a pro.
I realized that when I got done playing, I'm like, what am I going to do now? You know, I've made a lot of money, I got some great investments, and I got a great team around me, but there's something missing.
Rob wants to be a role model for his kids, but he'll tell you his entire life he has been following in the footsteps of his mom.
Y'all want to know why I'm here today?
He's always felt at home in a classroom.
I've had 2 dreams in my lifetime. My plan A was to be a teacher because my mom was a teacher, and I saw how much love she got from her students, so I wanted to be like my mother.
Big Shot Rob talked the talk, and now he has walked the walk. To him, commencement means opportunity and accountability.
Being held accountable. When I say being held accountable, because you have to educate yourself. And if you don't educate yourself, you're not going to put yourself in a position to succeed. And that's what I mean by hold yourself accountable.
A champion on the court and a champion of education. Robert Horry finished what he started.
Thank you for that, Nikki. Pivoting back now to Kobe Bryant's Hall of Fame ceremony. One of the guys who knew Bryant best is Spectrum Sportsnet's Robert Horry. Thank you so much for joining us. All of us saw Kobe's greatness from afar, but you got to see it every single day. What do you remember about him in his early days wearing that number 8?
You know, I remember when I got traded to the Lakers, and there was a lot of hype about this high school guy. And I'm like, okay, let me see this guy for myself, because we hadn't played the Lakers, and I didn't watch much basketball when I was with the Phoenix Suns. So I get here, and I'm like, this guy's skinny. This guy's tough. You know, all these things, these adjectives start coming to mind. I'm like, wow, this guy's going to be good.
Yeah.
And he had that desire to get better. You know, there's so many guys I play with that are good, but they don't aspire to be great. There's a lot of guys who don't put in the work ethic as he did. I mean, from day one, he wanted to be good. He wanted to be great. And he had that desire to push himself. You know, there's a lot of times where you can push yourself to the edge. He pushed himself beyond the edge. And it was just a wonderful opportunity to watch him grow from, I want to say a boy, because that's what he was. He was a young boy, and he grew into a man, one of the best men that ever played this game. So it was great to be there on the ground floor and watch him ascend to the top of that Mount Rushmore.
Did you have a hunch back then that he was going to make it to the Hall of Fame?
You know, you thought he would be great, but, you know, when it comes to the Hall of Fame, you don't try to put that on anybody, because you just want to play the game and let that, you know, get you into the Hall of Fame. And from watching him play, I knew he was going to be great. And after that 3rd or 4th year, I knew he was going to be in the Hall of Fame after that, because he did so many things that so many players cannot do. And that's how, for me, that's how you judge players on the basketball court. You know, if you look at the people I played with, there's only like 4 people I can say there was nothing on the court that they could not do, and Kobe Bryant was one of those 4s. And that's how I put you on my Mount Rushmore of people I play with. What can you not do on the floor? And there was nothing Kobe Bryant could not do on the floor. If you challenged him to play a whole game left-handed, think about it. This guy was right-handed. He could probably score 30 left-handed. So he was just that good.
It's incredible. You know, throughout your career, you played with a bunch of really great players, including Tim Duncan, who's also getting enshrined in the Hall of Fame today. So what separated Kobe? What made him arguably the defining player of his generation?
As of late, I think the word that defined Kobe has been the mental, the Mamba mentality. And I think with him, it was all mental. He pushed himself, like I said, beyond anything that anyone could push themselves. He had the desire to be great. I remember we would always mess with him about things he could not do. He'd be at the gym 2 hours before practice working on it just so he can prove you wrong. And if you look at his comparison to Tim Duncan, both great players, but it was something that separated. And what I like to pinpoint it to is that dog. Kobe had that dog in you where he would, you know, I'm not saying he would, but he would bite your ear off. And Tim was just that guy who kind of just cruised along. So that would separate them is the toughness and the wanting to, you know, I hate to use this word, is kill someone on the court. And he was just that guy. He wanted to kill you on the court and then stand over you and laugh. And that's just who he was. And you love that about him. You know, he inspired me, I inspired him, we inspired each other as a team. And think about it, he won 5 championships. There's a lot of Hall of Famers who can't say that.
Now, Vanessa Bryant and the GOAT Michael Jordan accepted the honor on Kobe's behalf. Is it hard for you to imagine Kobe not being there himself? And what do you think of that change? How did that impact the ambiance?
You know, it's hard because you want to hear it from his mouth.
Right.
You know, from his mouth to God's ears, and for him not to be able to be there and have his beautiful wife and his family be there, and the guy he aspired to beat, not be like, but beat, and MJ, to enshrine him is a wonderful thing. And, you know, you wish that you could be there. You wish you could celebrate that moment with him. But, you know, everybody always want to say he's watching and approving. And I'm just happy that I got to watch on TV as they enshrine a guy that I had the luxury of winning championships with and playing on the Los Angeles Lakers with.
I love that. Thank you so much for helping us celebrate Kobe's legacy on this very, very special day. Robert Horry, you can catch up pre and post game on Access Sportsnet.
An activist turned chef is fighting for justice. I'm Vicky Nguyen in Silver Lake. I'll tell you how the chef is doing that in her kitchen.
Looking forward to that, Vicky. And do you have any pictures you want to share with us? If you're on Twitter, use the hashtag #ShareSoCal. We might just use your image on air. We'll be right back.
Weekend on Spectrum News 1 is going beyond the headlines that you might have seen during the week and telling the stories of the people who are affected by the news.
We have a collection of the best human interest stories, but we're also telling the stories of our community, of you and me.
We bring this really great energy to our reporting in a really fresh perspective to the stories that you see. I wouldn't want to be anywhere else. Watch us every weekend on Spectrum News 1.
Sundays, Spectrum News 1 presents
In Focus SoCal, where we delve into the issues that impact you and the community you live in.
a half-hour show digging into the issues that impact Southern California. Your city, your issues, your show. In Focus SoCal, Sunday mornings at 9 on Spectrum News 1. Also available on the Spectrum News app.
Local politics in Southern California are fascinating because so many people here are passionate about the issues. Issues like health, transportation, the environment, and education, because you care about the future of your family. We know you really care because guess what? We do too. That's why every day we break down the current topics that are important to you. Watch Inside the Issues with me, Alex Cohen, weeknights at 8 on Spectrum News 1, exclusively on Spectrum.
When I'm not at work, you'll find me mostly with this little guy, my rescue dog. I adopted him almost 8 years now. And when I cover stories about animals or children or meaningful entertainment journalism, I'm sure you could hear the passion in my voice. By not just having general assignment reporters, by having reporters at our network that truly hone in and focus on different causes that they care about and grew up loving, that shines in their reporting and really makes it an authentic story for our viewers. I'm Bianca Ray, anchor, Spectrum News 1.
Introducing the new Spectrum News app. At home or on the go, all easily accessible. Download the all-new Spectrum News app, your community connection.
Hey there, I'm Catalina Villegas, and this is your Spectrum News 1 update. LA County officials say health inspectors will be out in full force this weekend, making sure businesses are complying with safety protocols since the county entered the yellow tier. Last week, inspectors only issued one citation after visiting over 300 businesses. Health officials are also reporting 306 new coronavirus cases and 15 more deaths on Saturday. And over in Orange County, health officials are reporting 55 new cases and 2 more deaths on Saturday. Health officials say the county is still on track to enter the yellow tier of the state's reopening system next week. That's if numbers hold steady through Sunday. And the Dodgers have agreed to sign all-star baseman Albert Pujols for the rest of the season. The two-time World Series champion was just released from the Angels last week. Pujols is ranked 5th in home runs and has grounded more double plays than anyone in Major League history. That's your update. Welcome back to your weekend. The Adelanto Immigration Detention Center in the high desert has come under fire due to the spread of COVID-19 in the facility. A judge ordered oversight of the center and how it was handling the outbreak. Now that same judge is calling for an investigation into the death of an inmate after ICE transferred custody of him to a hospital while on his deathbed. Some say it's a humanitarian act on behalf of ICE. Others say it's ICE trying to undercount the number of deaths in their custody. But what is clear is that this was not the first time it happened. Here is the story.
It's been 2 years, but Luciana Ibarra still can't let go of her brother's passing.
I'm looking at my brother's pictures. Memories are just there and things that are never going to come back.
27-year-old Jose Ibarra was Lucian's only sibling.
He was a popular guy at school. I was Jose's sister, so I was proud of that.
After school, Jose hit a rough patch. He lost his DACA status and served time for a felony conviction for fleeing from a police officer. At the end of his sentence, he was transferred to the Adelanto Immigration Detention Center, and that's when the nightmare really began.
This to me was just like my world was crumbling.
Less than a week into his stay, Jose had a brain hemorrhage. He was taken to the hospital, still under ICE supervision. Paralyzed and in a coma, he was cuffed to his bed day and night. 2 officers constantly by his side. On February 22nd, ICE transferred custody of Jose to the family, effectively releasing him. For Lucian, it was too little, too late. Jose died a few weeks later.
It made me feel like they were just disposing of something that was no longer good for them.
Jose isn't the only immigrant that has been released in this way. Attorney Margaret Hellerstein with Catholic Charities Esperanza Immigrant Rights Project fought for more than a year to get 55-year-old Martin Vargas released from Adelanto Detention Center because he was at high risk for COVID. Despite a judge's order, ICE fought to keep him inside.
They waited to release him until he was on his deathbed. If they cared about releasing him, they could have done so earlier.
ICE transferred custody of Martin to a hospital 3 days before he died without notifying her or the family.
He died alone. They let me learn through the coroner that my client was dead. I believe that ICE does this to avoid liability for a death in custody.
Now the judge that had ordered Martin released in early 2020 has launched an investigation into his death. In court filings shortly after Martin's death, the judge said he had significant concerns and said the facts surrounding his death were disturbing. That was after he had accused ICE of straight-up dishonesty when it came to COVID safety at the center. We reached out to ICE. They said they don't comment on pending litigation.
The practice of releasing people when they are already on their deathbed is not new. I had heard about the case of Jose. I think there are probably many, many others like that, but they don't have a family and they don't have an attorney, so nobody ever knows.
But people will know about Jose, says Lucian. His face won't be forgotten.
I have my brother with me. I take him everywhere. And from here on, everything I do will be for the both of us.
And she'll keep praying for Jose and the unknown number of migrants whose fate is unknown.
Raising the minimum wage is a controversial issue among restaurant owners. Critics say higher wages would mean employers would have to cut costs or, worse yet, lay people off. But Ricky Nguyen met one restaurant owner in Silver Lake who's offering much more than just a raise to the minimum wage.
An activist turned chef is fighting for justice in her own kitchen. I'm Vic Nguyen in Silver Lake outside of Chef Win Lay's restaurant, where she's paying everyone on her crew more than minimum wage. Standing up for social and economic justice as an activist for years didn't end when Chef Win Lay opened her first restaurant.
The minimum wage was never enough, especially how expensive it is to live in Los Angeles, and that if I were to have a place of my own, that was always a part of the plan.
Nguyen opened Bé U in February in 2020. Bé U means chubby baby in Vietnamese, which was her childhood nickname. The chef wanted to share her love for the food she grew up eating and enjoying in the small alleys of Saigon. She also wanted to share economic opportunities.
There's probably a people pleaser side of me that really loves this aspect of it, and also being able to create a space where there is economic justice to a certain extent, or at least fighting towards certain goals.
The state of California currently requires employers like Chef Wing to offer at least a minimum wage of $13 per hour if they have 25 employees or less. She has 7 people on her payroll and says she starts every worker at $18 per hour.
I've been calculating, and it's been like anywhere between $5 to $8 additional per hour per worker, because we pool and then split all of the tips.
The chef believes if people get paid a livable wage and are given paid sick leave, they're more likely to stay, work hard, and pursue opportunities within the business. Wing hired Eric Lopez to be her line cook a few weeks ago.
It was kind of hard trying to look for another job, but Chef Wang gave me the opportunity to come over here and work with her.
Eric says it was hard finding a job during the pandemic, but he needed to find something fast because he has a 9-month-old daughter. He's never worked at a job that paid more than minimum wage before.
We're human beings, and we all deserve to get paid the right way for the things we are doing. Like, we're killing ourselves, so like we're working hard, and to be getting paid low minimum wage doesn't feel right for a person, you know?
Eric says getting paid $18 per hour changed his life. Not only is he able to afford more bills, but it's motivating him to work even harder. Chef Wing says most of her employees are parents like Eric, who need to be paid a livable wage.
It was important for me to start small so that I can sort of test some of these ideas out, that I don't have all the answers.
While it wasn't Chef Wing Lay's plan to open her business during a time that many restaurants are shuttering, she hopes to weave her restaurant into the fabric of the Silver Lake community, giving her neighbors good food and her employees some stability.
Civil rights protests erupted all over the nation last year in the wake of the killing of George Floyd. One of those protesters calling for change is an up-and-coming artist from right here in LA, and she's doing it with the help of a music legend. Our Timothy Parker introduces us to Nakia Gold.
Get up, stand up for your rights. Everybody knows that Bob Marley classic, and this artist is taking it to a new generation with the Marley's Blessing, all for the cause of social justice. The sounds of reggae music.
For motherland.
In many ways, it was the life soundtrack for South LA native Nakia Gold, so it's no surprise she loved the music and the message of the late Bob Marley.
It was about bringing people together, making peace, equality.
Nakia is picking out her best outfit.
I got the red and white Nikes and the blue.
Getting ready to head to Staples Center, where at halftime of the Clippers game, she will debut her new video of Justice, Get Up, Stand Up. The remake of Marley's 1973 classic. The song featuring Wiz Khalifa is what she's calling a call to action.
People fail to realize how much power we do have and how much strength we do have in numbers, and how much power that we can use in unity to make sure that things happen, make sure that people are held accountable.
The new single has the support of the NAACP, ACLU, and more. Some will use it in efforts to encourage the passing of the George Floyd Justice in Policing Act.
We love the idea of having a song for the movement.
Rhonda Spears Bell is the Senior Vice President and CMO of the National Urban League. They will feature the song on their social media pages and at future in-person events. The song is being released almost a year after the death of George Floyd.
That speaks to not just the work that we're doing, but speaks to the time that we're in today. And it's so apropos that it is coming out and that is being launched at this time leading up to this anniversary.
As for Nakia, she's all ready for her big debut at Staples.
Clipper Nation, are you ready to hear Justice, Get Up, Stand Up, premiering right now?
For the first time, the world gets to hear her music, and again, the message Marley shared almost 5 decades ago. As a former arts teacher, she knows the power of music.
Now it can change someone's direction in a path and where they're going in life.
It's why she plays on and sings on for justice.
Hi, everybody. I hope you're enjoying your Saturday. So if you stepped outside, you noticed it. It was cloudy, at least for most of us. That marine layer was stubborn to clear, especially at the coast. Temperatures this time of year, we should normally be in the middle 70s, even close to 80 degrees out in the Inland Empire. But look at our temperatures for tomorrow, well below average, anywhere from 5 degrees to 10, even 15 degrees below normal in some places for tomorrow. So again, temperatures mainly 60s out there, even for our inland community. So Oxnard down in Ventura County beaches, mid-60s, low 60s, Simi Valley 60s, only 70 up in the Antelope Valley there for Lancaster. LA beaches in low 60s there, inland middle 60s. Again, that marine layer is going to be stubborn to clear, and we might even get some raindrops out of it tomorrow as well. Long Beach, again, coming in the mid-60s. You go a little bit farther inland, San Bernardino, 68. Again, up in the high desert, some low 70s. Down toward the San Diego coast, only low 60s. Again, Inland Empire, middle 60s. And again, we do have a chance at rain. It's all coming in with that enhanced marine layer with that low pressure system come down from the north. Again, anytime from tomorrow morning, even late tonight through early tomorrow morning, that enhanced onshore flow. Not everybody will get wet with this, but it's not mist and drizzle either. We could see some rain showers, mainly on the west side of the mountains and in through the foothills. All the way through Sunday afternoon, we'll get some partial clearing, but that is about it. So again, rainfall totals with this system on the light side, generally less than 1/10 of an inch. Some people will stay dry, but nonetheless, in May, showers are nice. We could use it. You see some holes in the green there. So again, not everybody will get wet, and most of the rain will be on the west side of the mountains. Best chances, of course, will be in the foothills. All right, 7-day forecast for the coast. So low 60s to mid 60s for the rest of the week there. The basins, again, 20% chance. Then we get into the low 70s Tuesday and Wednesday. And then we hover right around that 70-degree mark. And you'll notice low temperatures. Averages will be below average for most of the week here as well. Valleys, again, 20% chance. 60s will give way to 70s there Tuesday, Wednesday for the valleys. That's right about average. Pushing 80 degrees on Wednesday for the IE. That's getting close to average. High desert, windy most of the week. pushing 90 there on Tuesday, and then right around the 100-degree mark on a Tuesday as well for the low desert, and then the mountains, 50s and 60s.
California public schools are hurting after experiencing a dramatic drop in enrollment, more than 160,000 students this year alone. One reason, some parents are choosing to enroll their children in private schools, which were much faster in getting kids back into the classrooms during COVID. Natalie Brunell spoke with a family in Orange County that did just that.
Rewind just a few months, and Isaiah Leslie's living room looked very different, blending work from home with supervising school from home for his two kids.
One would be right there, and one would be right here. I became, the house dad. I helped with the kids learning at home, or tried to get them to be able to learn at home on Zoom.
But Isaiah watched as his 12-year-old son and 9-year-old daughter struggled adjusting to Zoom classes, especially his son.
My son has focus issues. It was frustrating for me because I could see that he was not taking to the learning. He was distracted.
It was also tough not having the structure of a classroom to separate school time from playtime from just being home. And when some of their friends' children began returning to classes because they were enrolled in private schools that received state waivers, Isaiah and his wife began to consider whether they should pull their kids from the public system and enroll in private.
We didn't want to leave, but we saw the damage that was being done to our kids learning being in Zoom only, and we didn't want to take a chance on not having fully in person in the fall.
Even though the cost of moving to a private education was a hurdle, Isaiah, who is self-employed, and his wife decided it was worth the investment because they felt disappointed the teachers' unions largely pushed back on returning full-time to the classroom.
The whole risk-benefit analysis, I think, is so off right now. I don't think people are paying enough attention to the benefits of in-person versus the risks.
Isaiah is part of a growing trend of California parents leaving the public school system. The state's Department of Education released data showing a sharp decline in public school enrollment this year, dropping by more than 160,000 students. Some are now homeschooled, some families left the state. But California private schools have certainly become beneficiaries of the drop, seeing an increase of at least 20,000 students.
I get it. People vote with their feet, and they're frustrated. A lot of them are not getting the education for their kids that they need.
His kids are now back in class full-time, while their former classmates are back in a hybrid model. Isaiah says his family is happy with their choice, and he said he wouldn't be surprised if more families made the same transition ahead of the next school year.
Thank you, Natalie. While much more drastic this year, enrollment drops are nothing new in California, really. In previous years, the number of students would fall by 20 to maybe 30,000, but that was mostly due to declining birth rates. Do you have a story idea or a comment for us? If so, email us at lanewsdesk@charter.com, at SMAC News 1 SoCal on Twitter, and at Spectrum News 1 SoCal on Instagram and Facebook. We would love to hear from you. It's their fourth straight win. We'll take a look at the Lakers' victory this afternoon and our one takeaway. Plus,
I'm Nick Chalkim in Little Tokyo, where young students are learning tradition and sportsmanship through the sport of karate.
We know them as fierce competitors. Now, Spectrum News 1 takes an in-depth look into their world, beyond competition. From the personal to the inspiring, beyond the lights, and into the hearts of our communities. Each week, we'll bring you the stories of the men and women that transcend the game. Beyond the Sport, every Wednesday at 9 on Spectrum News 1.
I think if you really want to get to know Southern California, you just need to spend a little time in these different communities. You'll really get a sense of the distinct personalities. As somebody who's worked in California most of my adult life, I feel a real connection to it. Our duty is to serve the audience. One of the great things about having all of these people who have roots in California at Spectrum News 1 is that we can provide context. That's invaluable insight to news.
I'm Lisa McCree, anchor, Spectrum News 1.
Your evening on Spectrum News 1 is everything you want to know all in one place.
Even though we have these big professional sports teams in LA, we also have a lot of local teams. And I think it's important that we get their perspective and their stories of all the things that are happening in the sports world. We all have our lanes in which we're experts and lanes that we're really passionate about, but we still make sure the show is about you. I think we bring a different perspective to your local and daily news, and I think it's something that you definitely would want to be a part of. Join us every evening, only here on Spectrum News 1.
LA Stories is this amazing half-hour show with people who are really making a difference in Los Angeles.
I'm going to be an Angelino till the day I die.
I love the opportunity to sit down and have a conversation with them so we can get into the inner workings of their mind and understand what drives them. Where's the limit?
There is no limit. I just started a record company.
I get a chance to meet people who inspire, and that's what LA Stories is.
Watch LA Stories, Mondays at 9 on Spectrum News 1, exclusively on Spectrum.
Introducing the new Spectrum News app, stories that matter to you, now wherever you are. Download the all-new Spectrum News app, your community connection.
The Lakers got their starting lineup back for just the second time this season, and they took care of business, beating the Indiana Pacers 122-115. Chris McGee from Spectrum Sportsnet has his one takeaway from the Lakers' fourth straight win.
One takeaway brought to you by Morongo Casino Resort and Spa.
2 games to play in the regular season, and the Lakers still do not know how their postseason will begin. 6th seed or play-in tournament. They say they only want to win the games in front of them. My one takeaway, looks to me like the Lakers are healthy again.
When KCP is involved and active offensively, this Laker team can be very tough.
Schroeder, the lob! Throw it down, King! 15-11.
LeBron James made his return to the floor and looked like his old self. He finished with 24.7 boards, 8 assists. It was also the return of Dennis Schroeder, who had been out of the last 7 games. He had 14 points. And Anthony Davis, who's been in and out of the lineup with injuries, posted a double-double, 28 points and 10 rebounds. After the game, LeBron talked how his ankle held up after coming back.
Much better than it did. I think that was the Toronto game, the last game that I played. You know, the ankle just felt a lot more mobility, a lot more movement. It was warm. You know, a tiny bit of soreness today. Right now, as the game is over, which I expected it, but I didn't have a setback today, so that's a damn good job for myself and for Mike Mancias and the medical team.
Now, for more Lakers content, download the Lake Show podcast on the Spectrum News app. This week, we talked to big shot Robert Horry about the Lakers' playoff picture, plus his friendship with his teammate, the late Kobe Bryant. Find the Lake Show podcast wherever you get your other favorite podcasts.
You can now get Spectrum News 1 on the go and watch us anywhere. Just download the Spectrum News app from the App Store or Google Play. It will keep you informed with the latest hyper-local news and up-to-the-second weather wherever you live. Plus, it will keep you connected to your community with stories and storytelling you can only get from Spectrum News 1. Check it out.
Hi again, everybody. So we'll do one last check of the forecast for tomorrow. So again, rain chances in the forecast, especially for the morning hours. This here is San Fernando Valley. You see the raindrops out there. So by 9 o'clock, upper 50s, still clouds in the mix. It's kind of like an enhanced marine layer, but pretty deep. So actual raindrops instead of mist and drizzle. 12 o'clock, 62 degrees, still some clouds in the mix. By the time we get to 3 o'clock in the afternoon, mid 60s. By then, maybe we'll see a little bit of sunshine, some cracks in the clouds, and then by 6 o'clock, most of the rain chances will be done, 64 degrees. So again, forecast highs for tomorrow. Again, it'll be on the cool side, running below average, anywhere from 5 to maybe even 15 degrees below average. So mid 60s for the coast and the basins. You see the percentages there. Even the valleys in IE will only get into the 60s, 50s in the mountains, and the deserts, low deserts, we're getting close to the mid 80s there.
A sign that things are returning to normal, in-person karate classes are back in Little Tokyo at a new recreation center. But as our Nick Chuck Kim shows us, these young grasshoppers are learning much more than punching and kicking skills.
Gymnasiums are an arena for competition, but there are only winners here. I'm Nick Chakim in Little Tokyo, where young students are learning the importance of tradition, sportsmanship, and respect through the sport of karate.
These karate students may look young, but they are fierce. Art Ishii is the sensei of this karate program at the Terasaki Budokan, and he's teaching these young students the Okinawan tradition.
In addition to the basic martial aspects of punching, blocking, and kicking, we emphasize in both our youth and adult programs the importance of building good character. Components of respect, discipline, consideration for others.
A third-generation Japanese-American, Art teaches karate to observe a shared cultural heritage, confidence building, and if necessary, self-defense.
Full speed, full power.
Art has been teaching martial arts since starting a judo club while serving in the military, which led him to open his own dojo in Little Tokyo. But when the Terasaki Budokan was being built, a new community gymnasium, Art decided to move his school to the new center. But the path to give these lessons was a long one. It took 25 years for the complex to be built. Ryan Lee is the director.
I think Budokan will be a place for the next generation of youth to explore their cultural identity and develop that foundation from a young age. What we're really focused on doing here is establishing an altruistic community where we have multiple generations represented here.
Clara Mulligan has been training with Art for 2 years, but started taking it seriously a year ago when the pandemic started. Physically, karate helped her stay fit, but psychologically, karate helped her stay centered.
With the rise of AAPI hate, it has been overwhelming, and I guess for the first time I am really paranoid for my family, when we go out on walks, and I do think doing karate has increased my confidence and just makes me feel safer in general, just at least knowing I have some version of self-defense.
Karate is as much a lifestyle as it is a sport, and thanks to 25 years of activism from the Little Tokyo Service Center, Clara and the community now have access to a full-size gymnasium and activity resources.
I want to think that these attributes that they learn in our karate program will stay with them the rest of their lives into adulthood, where they contribute to their society and their community.
Opening during a pandemic was challenging, but with the city reaching the yellow tier, the community needs a center now more than ever.
And that's going to do it for this edition of Your Weekend on Spectrum News 1. Every Saturday, I'll be right here sharing your stories and showcasing what makes living here so absolutely wonderful. We're so lucky to live here. If you have a comment for me or you just want to say hello, please reach out on social media. I love hearing from you guys and getting story ideas as well. Please send me a message. The information's right here on your screen. We're going to leave you with a look out at Manhattan Beach, courtesy of surfline.com. And I'll see you back here next Saturday at 5. It's a date.